Hello, everyone. Pat here again with yet another episode of our CUBED podcast, where we talk with professionals in the legal, regulatory, and legislative space, learning about everything that they're doing and also how AI is shaping their work. So I'm your host, Pat, co-founder and CEO at Abstract, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming Michele Lieber. She is a good friend of mine and global head of government and regulatory affairs and sustainability at FactSet. So, transparently, a lot of this sort of concept behind Cubed was inspired by conversations I had with Michele. So, really excited to finally have you on and talk about what you've been thinking about in the space. So, without any further ado, Michele, maybe a quick intro on like your background and what you do, and then we can dive into it.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks for having me. And as you said, we've become really good friends. And one of the things I love is finding people that have a shared interest in doing things the right way. And I've noticed that that's something that we share. So I've spent about 30 years in government affairs across financial services and insurance. I call myself a recovering lawyer, but my sweet spot has been I've been working with Congress, regulators, state officials, and for most of that time, my job has been about finding information. Now, my job is the exact opposite. It's really filtering the information and getting to it real time, quickly, and making sure that the quality of the data is acceptable, useful, and timely, and making
Mhm.
sure that it's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's honestly core to how we initially started talking. I said, hey, Michele, um, you know, we've been at this for a couple years. We started doing this thing called Abstract out of college, honestly. For those that don't know, it was like a dorm room project 6 years ago. And we were saying, hey, AI can actually help us make sense of these dense, laws and regulations. And that led us to, building a company in the lobbying space. And now we've sort of expanded to sell to corporates and enterprise or law firms. Um, and so we sort of bonded around the tech side, right? Like how this innovation is changing that work. And so maybe, Michele, if you can touch on, your experience seeing the shape of this data change and how we work with that data. I think it's really interesting, like sort of that evolution.
Sure, Pat. I mean, this is a fun one for me because I spend most of my day in rooms where people still think AI is either magic or a compliance problem. So it's nice to talk to someone like you, and it has been over the last year, where you're actually building things. And what I've tried to do is not miss the boat on AI. I think AI is here, it's not going anywhere, but it's going to be perfected. And I wanted to learn as much as I can as a regulatory practitioner what tools are available, what's useful. One of the things I've seen in my travels over the last year, I've been doing a lot of research on different tools. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of companies that I've worked with in the past have said they have an AI solution, but they're really just putting a wrapper on
Yeah.
something that is it's not artificial intelligence. And so what I love about the work that you've been doing and how you've explained it to me is you're actually building the tools with the embedded artificial intelligence information in it. And I think that that's really important. You're also just as neurotic, or that's for lack of a better word, as I am about quality. And I think that
Yeah.
that's really important. And I think as we move forward, there's going to be a lot of tools out there. Some are going to be amazing, and some of those are going to be really great. In fact, I think I told you probably about 20 years ago, I beta tested a tool, and at that time, they told me that it was going to be predictive analytics. I
Ah,
don't think that they got there, but I think that for me, that sparked an interest, right? Like I wanted to learn. I've always worked for companies where the government affairs and regulatory strategy function was important, but we never had a ton of resources to spend. And so having the ability to automate some of the information that I've had to do manually will be incredibly helpful in the long.
yeah. And I think, another really core part of our discussions is, hey, uh, we can use AI now in a way where it sort of like helps augment judgment or helps like, with the core workflow. I don't think it's at a point where we can just throw everything at it and it, does its magic wand and returns everything back. Um, I think once we get there, we'll have other problems because then we have to question what we do, for a living. But I want to get your thoughts on that a little bit more in terms of like your workflow in the government affairs space.
Sure. So I think about it this way, like I don't want to turn all of the unstructured, messy regulatory data into something that replaces the government affairs function. That's not my goal,
Okay.
right? But my goal is to find something that's decision ready, useful, and can augment the judgment, not try to replace it that I have to still make. Because I still have to make a decision, right? What is the strategy? How does it impact the bottom line of the enterprise I work for? How is it going to turn out? Frankly, I mean, I think that there's a lot of factors that go into a strategy. Who are the key players? What is the jurisdiction? Are there other things at stake? Who are our biggest opponents? And I think all of those still require human interaction. But having something that highlights all of the different capabilities and pulling them together into structured data workflow would be super helpful as we're making these decisions going.
So wouldn't you say that beyond, I mean, obviously time savings is like a key part, but I think the deeper value, right? The sort of greater value that AI can provide is, I guess, maybe uncovering things that you may have missed, or maybe providing additional data to help inform your judgment. Because when you say augment, I think there's like a sense of augmenting your work by just making it take less time. But I think
Sure.
more importantly, it's actually just helping you uncover things maybe you may have missed before. I don't know if that.
Sure. Sorry, Pat, if you were talking to me 2 years ago, I would have
Yeah,
told you I was looking for a regulatory tracking tool. And I've
yeah,
always had a regulatory tracking tool, and frankly, I've used Excel spreadsheets.
yeah.
Um, but I think we're not just talking about regulatory tracking anymore. AI has changed that conversation. We're talking about structuring it, connecting it, and if we're doing it right, helping us anticipate what's coming next, which I think that's going to be the game changer with using AI tools.
And I know in your sort of position as head of this function for a large company like FactSet, my understanding is that a lot of this work uh, translates into sort of reporting, right? You have to report these findings and information to the C-suite, to other key stakeholders. So in our conversations, I think it's been interesting to hear how AI also helps with that part, like sort of the outputs. So I wonder if you can touch on that.
Absolutely. And I think I've made this point to you a lot, but delivering outputs that are instantly usable is going to be really important to me. I don't have time to translate technology into English for our C-suite folks. That's part of the job now, right? So give me clean, decision ready summaries. Give me a tie in to regulatory developments and how they impact the business. I mean, that's ideal. And then make it something I can drop into a board memo, PowerPoint presentation, or talking points. I'll work on it. I'll make it definitely more useful for the bottom line. But I do think having some of that information will be critical going forward.
Yeah, and I've told this to you and others in the space. Like, there's purpose-built tools for this industry. I'm biased, of course. I think Abstract's one of the better tools that can help with this. But even before that, like just play around with ChatGPT, Claude. My personal favorite's Gemini. That's what I use for all my personal work, and just have Gemini create some slides, create some talking points for you. This is sort of like the new standard of how to generate this information quickly, and you can fine tune it with your tone of voice. So, I think we've talked about this analogy with the calculator, where the calculator redefined how we did arithmetic. Large language models are the modern day calculator for language. And so this is just like a tool that is, becoming commonplace. I think the takeaways, I have them listed out here that I was writing as we were talking, but what would you say are like sort of the three, the cubed takeaways in your
Yeah, I
opinion
think
here?
the three takeaways that I have is kind of structure the chaos, right? So regulatory data is the world's largest unstructured data set. It's not getting any cleaner. Let's find a way to pull hearings, rulemaking, speeches, enforcement actions. It's all fragmented today. Let's find a way to pull all of that together. Second point that I would love to make is don't try to replace the judgment that we all have to have, but augment it. So let's say figuring out ways to pull everything together, but letting my judgment still play a role. I'm really lucky that I get to work for a company like FactSet. We're tech forward, and we're using AI tools every day. I get to work with really smart people. They're really interested in what's out there, so I've had the opportunity to play around quite a bit, and I think that there are some really cool things happening. I mean, there are companies that are doing hearing summaries. There are companies that are building on the old regulatory tracking model like Abstract. There's so many cool things happening, and I think if we have the opportunity to get to use them, that'll be great. And then the third takeaway is deliver outputs that are instantly usable. So give me clean, decision-ready summaries, regulatory developments that tie to the business impact, and make it something that I can easily repurpose into a board memo or a PowerPoint presentation. Those are the things I'm looking for. The opportunity here is pretty simple, in my opinion. If we can take one of the most complex, fragmented information environments, global regulation, and make it structured, intelligible, and even a little predictive. I know that's a big stretch, but it's not just a better workflow, but it's a strategic advantage that I will have going into, any job that I do.
Yeah, we could probably do a separate podcast about prediction and all the fun chaos there. The long story made short is large language models are very fancy prediction mechanisms, but predicting events where humans are involved is much harder because humans are very unpredictable. Is my
And Pat,
takeaway.
I'd like to leave you with one thing. You and I are friends. We get to speak regularly, but I'd love to come back as the regulatory environment on AI starts to develop further. I'm going to be tracking that very closely. And I think,
Yeah.
once we start to have a framework, it'll be great to talk about that as well, because I do think there is going to be a global framework in place.
Yeah, and we'll be posting this on LinkedIn for those that are there and you want to comment. And if you think that would be useful, like feel free to leave a comment there because I think that would be a great discussion to have. And yes, federal, state, local, we're going to see a lot more coming out on that. So last question, Michelle, is if people are interested in reaching out to you, where's the best place? Is it LinkedIn, email? Where should they go find more information about yourself?
Sure, LinkedIn's great. I love that as a tool. I think it's a great place to engage. I do a lot of moderating of panels, believe it or not. So I love to do that, and I'm always interested in learning more about how people are using these tools and what tools are available and how they work. I really want to get into the mechanics of it.
Yeah. Well, this is great. Thank you again for coming on to the pod, and thank you also for helping inspire CUBED. So it's been a pleasure, and until next time.
I'm proud of the work you do, Pat.
Thanks, Michelle. Talk
Thanks.
soon. Bye.